Vinay Uppala, my immediate past chairman, CA G. Srinivas Garu, my colleagues at MC, and all the participants who have joined for today's seminar. Good evening to one and all. Before I start the proceedings, I request all the members to join for motto song. You need not raise for the motto song. You can keep your hand to your heart.
येष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं कामपुरुषो निर्विमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः सर्वे तदूनाति कश्चन एतद्द्वैता
Thank you all. At the outset, I welcome all the participants for today's CP seminar on the topic E-invoice and E-way bill and issues thereof. So it will be led by today. Two speakers are there with us, two resource persons, CA Sumit and CA Vinay. They'll be dealing on today's topic. Friends, I have been receiving messages and emails that this course has been designed wonderfully, and I have been receiving a good response and good feedback. Once we receive feedback like that, it keeps us encouraging to get a good speakers like today's speakers and from past 5 days what we had resource persons. So from Vijayawada branch side, we'll be trying to engage you with this knowledge in future also. So we have already with this feedback we have received, we have already planned one more program which I would like to announce now, that is right from May 19th and May 20th, when May 21st and May 22nd, that is 4 days. We have titled it as 4 corners because we have roped in 4 different resource persons from 4 different places. So we have titled it as 4 corners. So I'll just brief you upon that before we start the today's deliberation. Okay. That is 9 on, and CA Jalapat sir, SRC chairman, is kind enough to, he gave his consent to be a chief guest on that day, on 19th, on the first day. So on the 19th, on the topic of improving efficiency of audit using new functions of Excel, on this CA Vijay Agarwal from Delhi, he will be deliberating upon on this topic. And on 28th, we have Divya Abhishek from Chennai. She will be dealing on recent amendments in the Companies Act, with Schedule 3 and CSR activity. And on 21st, CA Nita Ravikishore and CA P. Raghavendra Rao. Ravikishore sir is treasurer of Vijayawada branch, and they both will be dealing on the topic statement of financial transactions in relation to TDS, 194 TDS on purchase of goods. And on the last day, that is on 22nd, we have on the topic, we have Mithilesh Sai from Hyderabad dealing on filing of forms 15 CA and CB. So, we have got consent from CB director for these 4 programs. I request all the participants who have joined today, flyer will be sent across all the WhatsApp groups and to you all to your email ID. So go through all the topics, and if you're interested, please join us on the day, on those 4 days also. With this, we have today CA Sumit and CA Vinay who will be dealing upon E-invoicing and E-way bill. So it is my present task to introduce briefly both of them to you all. Yeah. CA Sumit is a member of ICAI with 4+ years of experience in assisting array of clients in the field of indirect tax, compliance management, and due diligence and GST audit. Apart from CA, he has done his graduation in the Bachelor of Commerce in Accounts and Taxation. Mainly, his areas of expertise are in consumption taxes, including GST, Indian domestic indirect taxes, and Bahrain VAT. Mainly deals in the main industries are manufacturing, hospitality sector, and life insurance. A few good projects, key projects which he handled in his tenure are offering end-to-end advisory support to implement seamless and tax-efficient structures for Indian companies for its GST implementation. Involved in various assignments leading to monthly compliances relating to GST. In his previous role, he was engaged in various projects, including post-implementation review of ERP software, designing tax models, and reporting on their software review. Has worked on various accounting softwares like Tally, SAP, and Oracle, etc. He's instrumental in indirect tax in health checkup for an international hospitality unit in Jaipur. This is briefly about CS Sumit, and I have also pleasant task in my hand in introducing CA Vinay. They both will be explaining today's topic, deliberating upon today's topic in hand to hand. So CA Vinay, 1 second. CA Vinay is the director with the indirect tax practice and operates out in Hyderabad. Prior to joining BDO India, Vinay worked with the larger accounting firm and also worked in industry. So mainly apart from being chartered accountant, he has done as graduate in Bachelor of Commerce, and is a main industry. He has industry experience in pharma, healthcare, and manufacturing and financial service. His main areas of expertise are customs and international trade, consumption taxes, including GST, and Indian domestic indirect taxes. He has worked on several assignments in the areas of tax structuring, due diligences, diagnostic reviews, litigation across various sectors like IT, ITS, pharma, healthcare, education, etc. Few key projects which he handled during his tenure as indirect taxes practitioner are assisted number of clients in impact study and transition to GST, assisted various clients in post-implementation support, invoicing implementation, giving inputs to ERP team and testing the same. Conducted various GST training programs for various clients. Even Sumit also has good experience in conducting various GST programs across ICA and ICSI. CA Vinay has obtained indirect tax refund. He's good at obtaining refunds for various clients, and he's a good at litigation support. Giving support, litigation supported services also. So briefly about both of them, and I request you both before joining, sir, you introduce yourself also if I missed out anything at your end. So floor is open to you, sir. You can deliberate upon today's topic and go ahead, sir. Over to you, Sumit, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And thanks a lot for this warm introduction. I think you have covered more or less. I think it's excess only. So we are obliged to be here, and we will make sure that we give our best, and we make sure all the participants here get to learn something from us today, definitely, and we also get to learn something with some practical aspects. So now coming to the topic here, today we are going to discuss e-invoicing basically, and aspects along with that, e-waybill aspects few. How we will divide this session is that initially, Vinay, my colleague, will be taking the initial slides on the introductions and basic logic, legal aspects. Post that, I will take it up the practical challenges towards e-invoicing and various roadmaps to e-invoicing and e-waybill. So this is the broad two segments under which we will be dividing the whole session. I will request Vinay to take forward the slide deck now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Vinay Uppala. Thank you, Mr. Purna, for my introduction and Sumit's introduction. You have covered most of the things. So we'll start off with the topic. So am I audible to you all, right?
Yes, sir. Good. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. So we would just take brief background about the GST technology from 2017, what actually happened. So basically, GST returns are online. Like from excise regime in 2010, it started online filing, and GST returns are also online. So the most of the things they are changing. So from 2017, things are evolving, So originally the plan was GSTR 1, 3B, 1, 1A, 2, 2A, and 3B, but things changed. So finally, they have come up with the GSTR 2B. Latest one is e-invoicing from October 2020. Okay, so the roadmap was GST returns were introduced partially, then e-way bill was introduced in 2018. Later, GSTR 2B was introduced. Along with that, GST e-invoicing was introduced in October 2020. Along with that, refunds were also made online. So coming up to GST e-invoicing, originally they have planned it for taxpayers whose turnover is above 500 crores. So from October 1st, 2020, all taxpayers whose turnover is above 500 crores are mandatorily required to generate e-invoicing. So in the next slides, we'll explain what is e-invoicing. Okay, so from 1st January 2021, it was applied to all taxpayers whose PAN-based turnover in previous 3 financial years, starting from 17-18, 18-19, 19-20. In any of the 3 financial years, if the turnover was above 500 crores from 1st October, and from 1st January 2021, it was applied to all taxpayers whose turnover was above 100 crores. So from 1st April 21, it was again applied to all taxpayers whose turnover is above 50 crores. There was also a clarification that because this year changed, so in any of the 4 financial years here, if the turnover was above 50 crores, PAN-based turnover for entire company, if it is above 50 crores, then e-invoicing would be mandatory. So what constitutes, and there is a plan that it would be applied for all the B2B transactions, and they might limit it to taxpayers whose turnover is above 5 crores. But slowly it will be applied to all the B2B transactions. And coming to B2C transactions, so right now, it is applicable only for taxpayers whose turnover is above 500 crores. Slowly they will apply to taxpayers whose turnover would be above 550 crores. It will be brought in a phased manner. So even in B2C digital QR code generation, they have been extending the time limit. Originally, they have extended time limit for extension of QR code, self-generated QR code till December. Later on, it was extended till March 31st. And now till June 30, it is relaxed, like with the condition that if you are not complying with the QR code conditions from 1st July 2021, you will be penalized retrospectively from December 2020. So it is very critical that whosoever turnover has crossed 500 crores, they should implement this QR code B2C for B2C transactions from 1st July 2021. Otherwise, they will be ending up paying penalty from December 2020 onward. So what constitutes an e-invoice? There are 2 components basically. For B2B transactions, there will be an IRN generated from the GST designated portal. The IRN number is 64-digit unique number, which will be generated from the e-invoicing portal. In addition to that, there will be a QR code which will be provided by the GST portal. So the QR code and IRN number. So what will happen, like in the post e-invoicing regime, we will be generating our invoice normally from our ERP. Whether it is Tally or SAP or any other ERP, we will be generating an invoice. The details present in the invoice would be sent to e-invoicing portal. From there, we will be getting 2 additional informations. One is IRN number, which is 64-digit IRN number, and a QR code, which is generated by the GST e-invoicing portal. And once we get the details, we have to print the same in the tax invoice or debit note or credit note and provide the same to the tax your customers. So this is for B2B transactions. And for B2C transactions, we should not send the details to the e-invoicing portal. We should generate the QR code on our own. Okay. So for taxpayers whose turnover is above 500 crores, for B2C transactions, QR code shall be self-generated by the taxpayers. However, for taxpayers whose turnover is below 500 crores, the QR code is not yet mandatory. Okay, so Sumit, can you go to next slide? Next, yeah. So for what all transactions we need to generate e-invoice? So one is tax invoice. This is for all those taxpayers whose turnover is above 50 crores. For all tax invoices, we need to generate an e-invoice. A credit note, GST credit note, and GST debit notes, we need to generate a QR code and IRN from the GST portal for all B2B transactions. Okay, and also it applies to export transactions, supplies to SEZ units, and supplies by SEZ units also. SEZ developers, it is applicable. For SEZs, it is exempted. An SEZ unit need not generate a IRN number and QR code. However, a SEZ developer is required to generate a e-invoice. A taxpayer who is paying like a GTA service provider, he is generating a tax invoice, but tax is paid by the recipient. But for that transaction also, we need to generate an e-invoice. And supplies to government also requires an e-invoice, and supplies through e-commerce portals for which TCS is applicable for all transactions also we need a e-invoice. And for what transaction we need not generate an e-invoice is a delivery challan. It is not applicable to a delivery challan. It is not applicable to bill of supply. Bill of supply is basically issued for exempted products or nil-rated products, and it is not applicable for ISD invoice. So this is a brief background about e-invoicing applicability. Smith, next slide. So here we have tried to capture all the relevant provisions. Like originally it was planned to be implemented from April 2020. However, somehow it got extended to October, and that too it was introduced in phased manner. So notification 13/2020 and 1661/2020 are the principal notifications issued for GST e-invoicing, and later on through 88/2020 it was applied to taxpayers whose turnover is above 100 crores, and recently 5/2021 was the latest notification for making it applicable to all taxpayers whose turnover is above 50 crores. So even it is clarified that even if turnover from any of the four financial years, if it is above 50 crores, it would apply. Okay, so in case if it is applicable to a taxpayer and he is not complying with these rules, the invoice will be deemed to be a invalid document. So here we have given the e-invoicing portals. There are two portals. One is for generation of final e-invoice, and other one is a test website wherein you can it's like a sandbox where you can go and do testing of all your type of transactions, and later when the result is proper, you can move to the production. Next slide. So these are all the type of entities where e-invoicing is not mandatory. For exemption is given to a banking and financial institution, NBFCs. SEZ units are also exempted. However, SEZ developers are not exempted. Insurance companies are exempted, and then multiplexes and other exhibitions are exempted from e-invoicing regulations. Next slide. So what is the process? Like a seller or a taxpayer generates an invoice from the ERP, and from the ERP, the data is converted into a JSON format, and from there, the details are transmitted to e-invoicing portal, the designated portal, and from there you get two additional details. One is IRN number, which is 64-digit unique code, and a QR code. These are all for B2B transactions, and the details are again fetched by the ERP, and the same are stored in the ERP and printed on the tax invoice or debit note or credit note. This is the process in brief. Next. So Smith, you will take up from here.
Yeah, Vinay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vinay. So Vinay has covered the basic concepts of invoicing, and I'll be taking up the procedural part of the e-invoicing now. Again, just to reiterate what Vinay had mentioned, that e-invoicing is applicable to companies having turnover more than 50 crores from 1st of April 2021. Initially, when it was started, it was applicable for 500, then 100 crores from 1st of January. And then now, presently, the limit is 50 crores PAN level turnover from 1st of April 2021. So what we are discussing now is e-invoicing for B2B transactions. B2C transaction is as of now not applicable. It is applicable from 1st of July. Okay, so I hope we are okay with till here from the basic understanding standpoint. Now we'll discuss the procedural part one by one. Okay, now invoicing details are to be uploaded and registered on the notified IRP. Okay, so now I'll go one step back. One is invoicing, okay, but can you directly generate invoicing? The answer is no. In your ERP system, as you are generating invoices today, for example, if there is a sale to a party of worth 100 rupees, okay, you generate a normal B2B invoice with GST number of the customer, and you generate an e-way bill. For example, it's a movement of goods also, you generate an e-way bill together and you hand it over to the customer. This is the earlier practice, pre-e-invoicing regime. Okay. Now, what happens in the e-invoicing regime? What is gonna change in the e-invoicing regime? Now, a supplier. Okay. Now, this is one thing we have to notice, that e-invoicing is only applicable to the supplier, not to the recipient. So many people or many persons have a confusion that RCM transactions are leviable to RCM invoicing. So that has to be taken care by the recipient. The answer is no. Even though the tax liability to pay is on the recipient under the RCM, but generation of e-invoicing, if it is registered and crossing 500 crores, is on the supplier only. Okay, so we have to keep this in mind, that the provision of e-invoicing are only applicable to the supplier. Okay, that's one. Now, what will the supplier do? What are the broad steps? So first is, he has to register himself on the IRP portal. So if you see the first box here, IRP, Invoice Registration Portal, government has defined or designated the Invoice Registration Portal. Currently, one Invoice Registration Portal has been designated, that is the NIC portal, which we have already mentioned earlier, the link for the same. So if you can see the link before, we had the NIC portal, www.einvoicing1. If you see the numeric word 1.gst.gov.in, this has been a designated e-invoicing portal. Okay, so currently NIC is managing the entire e-invoicing. And just to give a perspective, even e-way bill. So if everybody is already using e-way bill portal from a long time, 2018. So e-way bill portal is also being managed by NIC, National Informatics Center, which is a government owned entity or organization, I would say, which handles the entire IT infrastructure of the government. They have been given the mandate to handle e-way bill, and also for the invoicing, they have been given the mandate. So if you see, the login credentials are common for both e-way bill and invoicing, because server for both the operations are on the same ground, same principles. So if you see, the login credentials for each GSTN, for e-way bill and for invoicing are the same. So I had to give a perspective what is Invoice Registration Portal. So once you generate an invoice, okay, in your ERP. So for example, Sumit has come to you that please give me one mobile worth of 10,000. So you as a supplier will give me the mobile, hand over the mobile. You will also issue an invoice. Okay. The time you issue an invoice, before that you will make an entry in the ERP system. Okay. That ERP system will also require or will also be required to have an integration with the government portal, that is an invoice registration portal. That we'll discuss later. I will take up the technical part. But what will happen is, now before issuing an invoice to the customer, and when I say customer here, please assume it is a B2B customer, because invoicing is only applicable to B2B transaction. That means the customer should be a registered person. If it's an unregistered customer, there is no requirement as of now. Someone comes, you give the mobile, hand over mobile, issue the invoice as you're doing currently. There is no change. But if the same mobile is being given to a B2B customer, in such cases, you have to generate an invoice in the ERP. That means you will make an entry in your ERP. Also, you have to register those details of the invoice. Again, I'm repeating, you have to register those details of the invoice. What you have generally in the invoice, you have the supplier details, you have the recipient details, you have the details about the product, pricing, rate, all these things. So all these things, once you make an entry in the ERP, the basic condition is first the invoice should be generated in the system in your ERP. You cannot generate in e-invoice before generating invoice in your system. The preliminary condition is that you have to generate an invoice in your system. Once that is generated, then you upload the data on the government portal. As of now, with the discussion, you assume that the data has to be manually uploaded on the government portal. I'll take it up separately in future subsequent slide, that what are the various ways in which you can do that. That's a separate discussion. But for the sake of now, those details, invoice details, you have to upload on the government portal. What government portal will do? They will check the details. Okay, whether these are the correct details. They have some validations. Okay, for example, a mobile number should be of 10 digits. Okay, if you provide 11 digits, they will throw an error. I'm giving a very basic validation. They will also check the GST number of the customer, whether it's correct or not. If it's an incorrect GST number, they will again show an error. So there are various validations at the IRP portal. Those validations, once you have completed all the validations, they will generate a IRN number. Now in the second box, in the middle one, you can see invoice reference number. This is a unique number, universally unique number. Okay, and this unique number is derived from 4 parameters. One is supplier GSTN, that is your GSTN you are supplying to me, supplier GSTN, invoice type. What is the invoice type? Whether it's a invoice, credit note, or a debit note. So which of the either of the case. Third is supplier invoice number. So as I mentioned you earlier, the preliminary condition is that you have to generate an invoice in your ERP. So I'll draw a little conclusion here that you will continue to generate invoices as you were doing earlier. There is no change in that. You have to do that. We cannot bypass that, because if we don't make an entry in the ERP, you won't get a unique invoice number, which is your invoice series. Within the for the same single financial year, every year you have a series, one invoice number 1, invoice number 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you report this invoice number on the in GSTR 1. The same invoice number is one of the parameter to generate IRN. And the fourth parameter is financial year, because for every financial year, it will be a unique. So they will combine all 4 parameters and generate a unique number. That unique number will be encrypted. Okay, and this is something very technical, which we also are not, that great in that. But the general terminology is they will encrypt that data, that concatenate number. So these all 4 details in Excel, how do we concatenate 4 cells? These 4 details will be concatenated, and once these are concatenated, they will be derived, a unique number will be derived through an encryption. Generally, we hear this encryption in a cyber security, that when the data is, if you see your WhatsApp, they just use the word end-to-end encryption. So if you say hi, the other person is able to see hi, but in between that tunnel, if anybody wants to read that message, they cannot read, because it will not go as hi. It will go as some unique encryption, ABCD 1, 2, 3, whatever 64-digit unique number, which is very difficult to decrypt. One is encryption, one is decryption. So WhatsApp or any other banking institutions, or wherever there is a strong security required on the cyber front, they use the encryption and the decryption. Okay, so you are able to, the user interface is able to see the end result, but in between the tunnel, when the data is being passed, it is being encrypted. That same encrypted characters are given to you as a unique IRN. Okay, am I understandable till here? That this is the second aspect, that when you give the details of the invoice, all the details of the invoice will be validated. 100% details will be validated. But once everything is validated, what you get in return, that is the main concept. So you give 10 details in the IRP. Okay, through the IRP, you give 10 details to the government. They will validate all those 10 details. But in response, they will say, yes, it is validated, tick mark. But what next? They will give you an IRN number based on these 4 parameters. And they will also give you a signed QR code. Technically, it is signed one by them. So it is a QR code. That QR code is consisting of 8 parameters. What is a QR code? Is a pictorial representation of data. That's it. Nothing great. Today you go to any shop or online, you do the shopping, you just scan the QR code. You try once, you scan a QR code normally without any payments app. It will just convert into a URL. That's a normal alphanumeric text. Same thing is being done here. They will give you a QR code, which is nothing but a pictorial representation of data. So this will be useful in future when government is planning to make it end-to-end paperless. So you issue an invoice and you say, okay, customer, your invoice is issued. You would have got a message and a invoice QR code and invoice copy also from the government portal. That's the next level planning which government is planning, because in one of the white paper, in one of the points in the white paper, they mentioned that they want to reduce the dependency of the paper as well. So they want to make it paperless and to reduce the what you call a supply chain cost. Unnecessary, there are time involved in sending the invoice, then the payment. The turnaround time will reduce to a greater extent because everything is happening in a fraction of seconds. I would again repeat, it's a fraction of seconds. Once you upload, they give the, so you would be thinking there are so many validations happening. So these all validations will be happening in a fraction of seconds. Not even 1 second sometimes. It takes less than 1 second. So these are the basic principle or the basic procedural aspect of generation of IRN. And what government gives back is a IRN number, and other is a QR code. The QR code is nothing but details of the invoice, a summarized details of invoice along with the unique IRN. Okay, this QR code is mandatory to be printed on the invoice. Now this is the main aspect which from an accounts and bookkeeping standpoint, everybody has to ensure for their respective companies, whosoever turnover is crossing 50 crores, that a QR code is mandatorily to be printed on the invoice. If you are not printing the QR code, though you have generated the IRN number, but if you have not printed the QR code, that will lead to a non-compliance. So this requires integration, or you generate an invoice from the government portal, depending on the volume. That can be discussed later. Okay. Now, I will just go through the 4 points which I have mentioned above. Details are to be uploaded in the schema format. Currently API 1.03. See, there are 2 things. And again, this is technical. Please note down. This will be very useful for everybody because there is a lot of confusion among the industry people that what is the difference between a schema and an API version. Okay, I'll just take back you 1 second. Okay, now if you see here CGST rules. So as Vinay mentioned earlier, the mother notification was notification 13, read with notification 61, and these notifications, the further notifications. And there is also a trigger rule, rule 48. See, rule 46, 47 are the general invoicing rules which we are following since 2017. Rule 48 prescribes the number of copies of invoice, and then they have added the recent condition of e-invoicing. So if you see the basic trigger of e-invoicing, it is rule 48. Everybody has to know this. As per the law, what is the trigger for e-invoicing? It is rule 48. Okay, rule 48 prescribes the e-invoicing schema. Now, what is schema? That is INV01. Government has defined INV01 as a schema. Once there is a change, they may do INV02, then 03, whatever the case may be. Okay. Now, why is schema required? You will ask me a question, Sumit. As per Rule 46, already parameters of the invoice have been prescribed. Then what is the additional need to prescribe a schema for e-invoicing separately? Because similar data will be going in the invoicing. There is no something very new thing is coming out in the schema. Okay, but what is the intention of the government is to make everything digitalized. Now, to make it digitalized, you have to standardize. Again, I am repeating, to digitalize something, you have to first standardize it, standardize the characters, standardize the data, standardize the content. If anything is not standardized, then you computer to computer, machine to machine reading or computer to computer communication is not possible. So to make it universally communicable, the invoices, okay, they have defined a fixed schema that all the parameters of the invoice should be as per this schema. Okay, I'll give you a small example. The invoice type, which we have discussed the invoice type here, the second one, supplier GSTN, and then if you can see my cursor, invoice type. As per the schema, the invoice type is INV, CDN, and DBN. What is the full form? Invoice, debit note, and credit note. Okay, but government has made it standardized, saying that INV means invoice, CDN means credit note, DBN means debit note. Now, if you upload the data with INVOICE, the whole text, it will not accept, because the programmer has feeded only INV backend in the government portal. So the computer will understand only INV, CDN, DBN. It won't understand any other text. In the normal parlance, in normal pre-invoicing regime, somebody used to write tax invoice, somebody used to write export invoice, somebody used to write invoice come bill of supply. So there were many variants of words you can understand. So there was no standardized concept of writing a invoice heading. I'm just giving a small example how standardization is working. So to make it very standardized across the globe of India, across the universe of GST or maybe financial transactions, this initiative has been taken. Hope I'm clear till here. Okay. And just one more announcement, and I just forgot to make this announcement earlier, that we'll take up all the Q&A at the end of the session. Don't worry. Okay, because otherwise it would disrupt the flow of the session. Now, I have explained Rule 48.
Yeah, we'll take the Q&A at the end. Yeah, yes, sir. We'll take the Q&A at the end, sir. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So as I have explained, Rule 48 is INV01. Now you'll ask Sumit, what is API, which is written in the second line? API 1.03. See, INV01 schema as per Rule 48 is a legal literature. It is a legal literature. Basis that legal literature, the professional software engineer will generate the API JSON file. We generally know JSON file for GSTR1 filing, audit filing, many other work. So for a software developer, they have to develop a API mechanism, a JSON structure coding. For that, they make it a version. So when initially invoicing came in October 2020, it was API version 1.01. Okay, API is a computer, it's a terminology of software engineers, which is a readable language between two computers. I'm just simplifying it. I'm not telling exactly. So legally, for us as a chartered accountant, legally we have to take this as INV01 as per Rule 48. So if you open Rule 48 and open INV01, you can see what is the legal literature. But to do the technical integration with SAP, Oracle, any other software in the market, okay, you have to follow API version. Okay, those API version would be based on the schema itself. They can't go beyond the law. If it is beyond the law, you can always go to the officer or to the authority and always ask or challenge that. That's a separate issue. But the basic principle for doing the technical integration is API. Okay, API, I have also given the e-invoicing API developer portal. So you can go to this portal, e-invoicing-API sandbox.nic.in. This is the developers technical portal. You can get the APIs, which I have mentioned here, 1.03. Okay, these are released by National Informatics Center because, as I mentioned earlier, currently the mandate is given to the NIC for doing the implementation. Okay, I hope I'm clear till here. Now, IRP will generate the unique IRN and the QR code. I've already mentioned, once you upload the entire data, in response, you will receive IRN number and the QR code, which needs to be printed on the invoice. Correct. That's a legal mandate. Both IRN and QR code are printed on the invoice. This is the entire procedure to obtain an IRN and a QR code. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, invoicing schema. Okay, so this is the schema. Total, there are 132 fields. Okay, of the schema. We cannot take up each and every part, portion of the schema. That's the reason we have just summarized what are the contents of schema. So I'm just cautioning everybody, if you're doing an implementation of invoicing, you will get to know that there are 132 fields which is to be available technically for generating an e-invoicing. That's a headline statement, that totally 132 fields have to be captured and to be uploaded on the government portal to generate and to validate and generate the e-invoicing. But that has to be broken down, and it has to be divided into 3 buckets. The first bucket is mandatory fields. These 29 fields are applicable irrespective of the industry, the scenario, or anything. To generate an invoicing, those 29 fields you have to fill it. So even 29 fields to fill to get the data, we as a chartered accountant professionals, we understand how difficult it is to get the data also nowadays because of the pandemic and the data entry issues. So to capture 29 fields is also not easy. So you have to have a very good implementation plan in advance before implementing the invoicing, because later point of time, if you miss even a single field, your entire invoicing supply chain is at a halt. So that critical it is. So you have to very carefully map all the 29 fields for sure. Now, next is conditional mandatory fields. What is conditional? Based on a condition, they will be a mandatory. For example, if you know a pharma company, a pharma sector, which deals in the medicines, nowadays you can see a lot of medicines are in the market. So when you go and purchase a medicine, if you have a look to the invoice, okay, expiry date and batch number are always available on the invoice print. Okay, and this you have to vouch me that this is a legal mandate as per the pharma laws, respective pharma laws, that expiry date and batch number is mandatory. Now, this is not applicable to every industry, correct? It is not applicable to IT company. There is no goods. It is not even applicable to a FMCG as such, but it is mandatorily applicable to a pharma distributor or a pharma retailer. So in such cases, batch number and the expiry, these 2 fields automatically becomes mandatory. Understood? So this is conditional mandatory. Next is optional. Optional fields are irrespective of the industry or any the situation. It is always optional. For example, bank account details of the supplier. These details, if you provide, well and good. Even though you don't provide, no harm. There will be no constraint or there will be no issue in generating invoicing. Okay, so the same thing we have summarized here. If you can have a look here, we can have a version number. So currently, as I mentioned, the versioning of the API. So API currently version is 1.03. So this is the version. This will change, go on changing. Next is additional document details, batch details. So as I mentioned, batch number and expiry date, buyer details. So in buyer details, 6 fields are mandatory, 1 is conditional mandatory, and 4 are optional. So in detail, if anybody wants to have a look of the this details of schema, they can open INV01 and it is a in detail, point to point, field to field. There is a detailed schema which you can refer. In case of any queries, please feel free to reach out to me. No worries. So this is the broad understanding of the schema. So the base for this entire invoicing is as per Rule 48, read with INV01. Like you have GSTR 1, you have GSTR 3B for returns. Similarly, for invoicing, you have Rule 48, read with INV01. Hope I am clear till here. Now, coming to, so you will say, okay, Sumit, I have generated invoicing. I have got the QR code in response. I have got the IRM number in the response. Now, what next? What are the mandatory contents to be printed on the invoice while issued by supplier? I already clarified this, but again, just to reiterate, GST INV01 is only for reporting invoice details to IRP. Okay, so again, INV01, it is a legal literature. So as per Rule 48, these are the mandatory contents which have to be reported to the IRP. Okay, but you will continue to follow Rule 46 for the printing. Again, it's a little confusing. Please again carefully listen to me. Rule 46 is the current invoicing provisions. If you open Rule 46 today, they will tell you what are the contents of the invoice, contents to be printed on the invoice. Okay, generally, assume there is no invoicing. So Rule 46 prescribes the contents of the invoice to be printed mandatorily. Okay, now you have to additionally print QR code and the IRN number on the same contents on the invoice. So you will ask me, Sumit, what is the difference between Rule 48 and Rule 46? You told that you have to follow Rule 48, INV01. So INV01 is notified for invoicing. So what is invoicing? You generate invoice, you send the data to the government, and in response, you get the IRN number and the QR code. So for the limited purpose of government validation and government recording, government invoicing generation, you will use INV01. But for the printing of the invoice, you can follow Rule 46, but you have to mandatorily, or I would say additionally, print QR code and the IRN number. This is the additional condition which you have to follow. You may follow Rule 48 for the printing also. There is no harm because Rule 48 more or less covers Rule 46 everything. Okay, but Rule 46 is a base for the printing of invoice, and Rule 46 also prescribes that whose turnover is above 50 crores, they have to generate or they have to print QR code. Okay, so there are two trigger points. Rule 46 is applicable to every registered GST supplier. There is no exception to it. Once you are GST registered, you have to follow Rule 46 and you have to print invoice as per Rule 46. Next is Rule 48, which notifies specified class of person to generate invoice. Who are those specified class of person? As of now, above 50 crore turnover have to generate invoicing. Hope I am clear. Rule 46 is invoicing rules. Rule 48 is for invoicing. Okay. Now, I will go to the next slide, and which is
one more point.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, for whichever industry, they have additional mandatory requirement to generate invoices. Like for a pharma company, they should have batch numbers, drug license number, etc. They should continue to do those printing. So this is only in addition to those regular invoicing. We have two additional things. One is IRN and QR code. Sumit, you can continue.
Yeah, thank you, Vinay. Yeah. Now we have discussed the legal aspects, the procedural aspects of generating invoicing. Now the next leg of discussion is, how do I generate? You will ask me, Sumit, I have thousands of invoices per day. Do I need to do this activity for every invoice? Then I can never do a business. Then I have to close my business, or I have to stop my business to an extent and then start only focusing on generation of invoicing. Or otherwise I have to hire specified class of a set of people just to generate invoicing. It's very costly affair in that case. So to mitigate this issue, okay, there are technological advancements to it. Now it is the nation and entire globe, and invoicing is not something which is only applicable to India. It has already been implemented in various countries in various countries like Brazil also. So very developed countries and developing countries both have already developed or implemented invoicing. So there are a lot of learnings from it, and we have been adopting Singapore model also for implementing invoicing in India. So invoicing in India is quite refined in that way because we have taken experiences from various countries. So this was, again, as I mentioned earlier, this was one of the pain point, that how do I run my business with so much of requirements. So these requirements can be handled at one time, a detailed one-time technology implementation. I am not using the word legal implementation because legal here is not that requirement, because legally whatever the provisions were applicable in the pre-invoicing regime, the similar provisions are applicable in post-invoicing regime also. There is no change in the GST provisions as such, compliances. The only change is the reporting. Again, I'm repeating, the change is majorly now reporting. Okay, so you earlier used to report those transactions at month end. That's a post facto through GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, which is also continuing now. But what is changed now is the reporting is real time. You have to provide the details of invoice real time to the government. Now, how do I do that? First is API based. If you open the portal, which I have already showed in the, I've already displayed the URL, developers portal. You can see APIs. Those APIs are to be consumed by the software, accounting softwares. So if you are using Tally, for instance, Tally is providing a ready-made solution for e-invoicing. So you don't need to do much things. You have to just upgrade or do some changes, and you are ready with e-invoicing. So for Tally customers, it's really easy because backend Tally has already done the API integration. So whatever I was discussing earlier, assume you are not using Tally, you're doing invoicing through Excel. For every invoice, you're generating an Excel and you're giving to customer. In such case, it is really difficult for you to follow or comply with e-invoicing. It's not impossible, but it would take a lot of time and efforts. But if you are using an accounting software, you have to integrate your software with the API provided by the government. Now, one is you directly integrate with government APIs. That's one option. Or if you say that, Sumit, I have 1 or 2 or 3 or max 10 invoices per month for B2B transactions. So government has provided an offline tool for it. So you upload the details at one go. Even bulk upload is possible for multiple invoices. You upload, generate invoicing. That is also good, no issue. And you can also take a print from that offline utility. That functionality also is available. Even masters also is available. That government is provided, but those functionalities are helpful only in case you have limited transactions. In case you have humongous transactions, assume 500, even more than 100, it's very difficult to have a control over the data. In such case, a end-to-end integration, okay, a tightly held integration from ERP to the government portal is always preferable. Now that can be done in 2 ways. One is you directly integrate with government, okay, government portal. Second is you can take help of various professional organizations which have been designated as GSPs. If you see my third line, GSP, that is GST Suvidha Providers. These are licensed providers. Okay, you will find many in the market. BDO is one of them. Okay, everybody have the same solution more or less. Okay, what you can do is you can reach out to any of the GSP licensed providers. These are empaneled. These are licensed. Anybody cannot be a GSP. Government gives license for GSP. Why will government give license? Why not government directly integrates? Because government wants to manage the traffic, okay, through various channels. If the whole traffic is directed to the government portal, it is very difficult. There should be some filtration at the local level. So that filtration is possible at GSP. So this various GSPs in the market will also support you in the end-to-end integration. So basically, these are three types of integration which you can always prefer while doing the invoicing. But there are certain variables to decide. The basic and the foremost is that what is the volume of transactions? Okay, that's one. Second is what is the category of business? If your business is entirely B2C, then not applicable. If there are only one or two invoices, you use the offline utility, you are done away with your invoicing. But if you have thousands of B2B and one or two B2C, then it is always preferable you go for an integration, because that will also help you to keep a record properly in your ERP and have a proper database. Okay. Now comes the technical part. I'll take this up very calmly, carefully, because this requires a lot of attention of the audience here, because there are various combinations. Now, as I mentioned earlier, e-invoicing and e-way bill both are handled by the same authority, that is NIC. NIC is managing the entire show of e-invoicing and e-way bill. Both the requirements are now integrated. One is we were discussing integration of ERP with the government portal. Now government portal also is backend integrated with the e-way bill portal and the returns portal, that is a gst.gov.in. So it's totally a interdependable solution. So we have to be very careful with the scenarios. So we have broadly defined the relationship with e-invoicing and e-way bill, and this will be very useful for the entire audience. And I think major queries will come from here. So I'll go one by one. First rule: IRN and e-way bill can be generated together. Now people will ask me question, Sumit. Now this is leading to double compliance. I am already generating e-way bill before e-invoicing also. Now you're telling me to generate e-invoicing and e-way bill also. Why this two compliances? Okay, to be very frank, I don't have a clear answer, but as of now, the clarity is that IRN is at the invoice level. Again, I'm repeating, IRN is at the invoice generation level, and e-way bill is at the movement level. Okay, so e-way bill is to track the movement, IRN is to track the transaction, the invoices. Okay, now government and various sources from the ministry have given a statement that in future they will migrate both. So you have to do only one, but we have to wait and watch for that. Okay, coming to this point, so IRN and e-way bill both can be generated together. Now you will ask me, Sumit, how can I do that? Because both have different requirements. So what government have done is, see, if you know part A of e-way bill, part A of e-way bill is nothing but purely invoice details. Okay, everybody would agree with me. Part A of e-way bill, there are two parts of e-way bill. When you generate an e-way bill, there is part A and part B. Part A of e-way bill is entirely invoice details, ditto invoice details, and part B of the e-way bill is the vehicle number. Okay, that whatever the vehicle number is to be used for the transportation. So what government as of now NIC has done is, the details which you provide for IRN generation. Okay, again I'm repeating, the details which you upload or you send to the government portal for IRN generation, the same details are being used for the part A of the e-way bill. Okay, till here I'm okay. Hope I'm okay. Now, part B of e-way bill, that is the transporter ID and the transporter details and the distance. These details, additionally, they have kept a field in the schema. Okay, in the schema, if you see, I'll just go through this. Transaction shipping details here, you will find here in the APIs. If you see the APIs at the NIC, separately you can have a look. There is already a field of distance and transporter details and the vehicle number. These details are only the additional details which are required for e-way bill. If you provide these details also with the invoicing generation, in response, earlier you were getting only QR code and IRN number. If you provide the transporter details, that is a vehicle number and the distance, and distance can also be automatic. There are certain conditions if you provide the pin codes. Okay, so if transporter ID or vehicle number is provided, you will also get the third e-way bill number also automatically in the fraction of seconds. Okay, so but there is a catch here. This e-way bill is only available, this functionality is only available for B2B, because as Vinay had taken up earlier, the applicability of this invoicing is only for B2B transaction. Now, if you are selling goods to a B2C customer, you will not generate invoicing, so you cannot also generate an e-way bill automatically through invoicing. Okay, so we keep B2C and the delivery challan transactions separate here. For the purpose of the discussion, we assume it's a B2B transaction. If it is a B2B transaction, you can generate IRR number and also you can generate e-way bill together. Okay, this is a welcome step, and this will also help the fraternity or the industry to generate and to manage the compliances easily. And in future, government is contemplating to even merge that e-way bill requirements in IRN itself entirely. Okay, and that we have to see maybe how when it happens. Okay, that's the first point. Now coming to second, generation of e-way bill from IRN has also been enabled. Now you will ask Sumit, when I generate an invoice, I don't know the transporter details, I don't know the vehicle number. How do I manage e-way bill at that point of time? So government has given a functionality. You generate e-invoicing first. Okay, whenever you are aware of the vehicle number, you go on the portal, you just mention the invoicing number, details will appear, you give the vehicle details, you'll also get the e-way bill number. Okay, you don't need to insert the entire data again. So there are two options. One is when you send the data of invoicing, you also give the vehicle number. If known, it's well and good. You get the IRN and e-way bill together. If you don't have the vehicle number at that point of time, you only generate invoicing. You wait for the vehicle to be arranged or some other conditions, and then you provide the part B details and you generate e-way bill also. So your efforts to that extent is reduced. You don't need to enter the entire e-invoicing or the invoice details to again. That's the second point. Third, in case transporter ID is entered, e-way bill can be generated with pre-filled details. Okay, now what is this? I will just, yeah. So in case transporter ID is entered, e-way bill can be generated with pre-filled details of part A and part B. So I will just discuss a little bit more on e-way bill now again. One is you have vehicle number. In many cases, you may not be having the vehicle number also, never, because you give the goods, hand over the goods to the transporting agency, assuming it's a Shriram Transport, assume. So you hand over the goods to them, it's up to them through which vehicle number they transported. So in such cases, what you will do? You will give the transporter ID. What is transporter ID? Either it can be the GST number of the transporter or a unique transporter ID generated by the transporter from the e-way bill portal. So if you give transporter ID in lack of vehicle number, then also e-way bill will be generated. Again, I'm repeating, they will not hold your e-way bill if you don't provide vehicle number. If you provide transporter ID, that's sufficient. They will generate e-way bill number, but that will not be an active e-way bill. Active e-way bill will be active only when you have given the vehicle number. Okay, so once you provide the vehicle number, it will activate, or the transporting agency will punch the vehicle number. That's the requirement. Now fourth, e-way bill will be generated only if requisite details are uploaded. Okay, what is the requisite details? One is transporter ID. Additionally, what is the details? Transporter ID or part B. If you provide either of the details, again I'm repeating, either transporter ID or either you provide part B details. Irrespective of any of the two details, if you provide, your e-way bill will be generated along with the e-invoicing. Okay, so that's the requisite details of e-way bill. Now, e-way bill for other than e-invoicing scenarios shall be dealt independently via e-way bill portal. So as I mentioned, e-invoicing is not applicable to B2C and delivery challan transactions. So for such transactions, you have to independently generate e-way bill as you were doing earlier. Hope I am clear till here. Now, next is cancellation. Okay, how can you cancel an e-way bill? So if you want to cancel an invoice itself, IRN also. So first you have to cancel e-way bill if there is an active e-way bill, and then cancel the IRN. You directly cannot cancel an IRN. For example, you have generated an invoice, you generated e-way bill, that goods have also started the journey. It's under transit, and then you try canceling the e-way bill. Okay, in that case, it is not advisable because the goods are already in transit. So in transit, you cannot cancel an e-way bill, and hence you also cannot cancel an e-invoice. Okay, so assume you have not transported and you found that there is a mistake in the invoice and the e-way bill. You first have to cancel e-way bill, then you have to cancel IRN. The time limits we will discuss in the subsequent slides, that how, when, by what time we can cancel an e-way bill. Next is IRN cannot be cancelled if active e-way bill exists. Again, as I mentioned, if e-way bill is active and assume it has been inspected by the officer on the roadside, then definitely you cannot cancel the e-way bill and the IRN number. Third is cancellation of e-way bill is enabled through IRP based on e-way bill number. So you will ask me, Sumit, whether I have to go to the e-way bill portal for cancellation or I can cancel at e-invoicing portal. So as of now, government has provided functionality on e-invoicing portal also. If you provide the e-way bill, you can cancel the e-way bill number. But if you have to update Part B, extend, these functionalities are yet to be developed on the IRP portal. So as I mentioned earlier, government is planning to slowly, gradually migrate e-way bill functionalities into e-invoicing. So we have to wait for that entire functionalities to come on the e-invoicing portal. Next is regeneration. Regeneration of e-way bill on the same document is possible. To clarify, for same document number, you cannot generate an e-invoicing. Okay, how do I explain this? For example, for invoice number 123, okay, for example, invoice number is ABC. For ABC, you have generated in invoice. You got a unique invoicing number and you got a QR code also. Now, you cannot go back again, cancel that invoice and generate invoice on the same invoice number ABC. No, government won't allow. The basic principle of invoicing is deduplication check. Again, I'm telling, the basic principle of invoicing is deduplication check. You cannot generate invoicing for the same invoice number again. If by mistake you generated correct invoicing, okay, with ABC, but by mistake you generated wrong invoicing, so you will say that, okay, I'll cancel invoicing and generate again. No, you have to also cancel the invoice in the ERP. You have to also cancel the invoice, then generate fresh invoicing with the fresh invoice number, that is XYZ, assume. So invoicing cannot be generated with the same invoice number, but e-way bill can be generated with certain conditions. 1 second. Okay, sorry. So this is the relationship between invoicing and e-way bill at a very high level. Okay, this can be discussed in detail, but it's like an ocean now. Okay, there are many permutation scenarios, combinations, which we can discuss in the Q&A if somebody has any specific scenario in mind. Okay, now cancellation, and this is a really important aspect because there are a lot of human errors. It's bound to happen that we may generate a wrong invoice or an e-invoice. So how to handle these scenarios? So to handle these scenarios, first is cancellation. Invoicing cannot be cancelled partially. First and the foremost principle of invoicing, that you cannot cancel it partially. Okay, if you have done a mistake, go ahead, cancel it completely. Even a small minor mistake, if the tablet name is XYZ, by mistake you wrote XYZ dot, if you want to delete the dot, that also cannot be edited. You have to cancel the entire invoice and generate fresh. That's the first principle. Second, e-invoicing cannot be regenerated for an invoice for which an invoice has been cancelled earlier. This I've explained already. If an invoice ABC is cancelled at the IRP portal, okay, for the same invoice ABC, you cannot generate e-invoicing. It is not allowed. Okay, this is again because of the principle of deduplication. So everybody have to should keep in mind the principle of e-invoicing is first is deduplication check. Government portal will do the deduplication check first and the foremost check. Then it will do the remaining validations. First check is deduplication. Okay. Now, next is e-invoicing can be cancelled at IRP portal within 24 hours. And this is really important. I would request everybody's attention here that if you have committed a mistake, a human error, a small mistake also, and if you want to cancel, you can cancel only in 24 hours of the generation. Post 24 hours, if you want to cancel, no opportunity. As of now, we only suggest clients that you generate a credit note. That's it. That also is ideally not as per law, but that's the only practical option I would say as of now. But once e-invoicing is generated, kindly do a review as soon as possible. And if you want to cancel it 24 hours. Post that, there is no option for cancellation. Okay. Post that, cancellation per se is not possible. However, nullification, again, as I mentioned, nullification of the invoicing can be done on GST portal, possibly through issuance of a credit note. That will also go through IRP portal only, which means effective cancellation of original invoice too. Hope everybody understand that we are nullifying the transaction credit note. That's it. But cancellation would not be possible post 24 hours. So everybody have to, every company has to keep an SOP or a procedure in place that all the cancellation should happen within 24 hours, or once the invoice is reviewed, then only e-invoicing is to be generated. So it's not compulsory that you generate an invoice and on the same second you generate an e-invoice. You can keep those invoices in a dashboard. As in when the goods are being moved, you can click on the button and generate e-invoicing depending on the software, accounting software, or depending on the functionality of the accounting software. But don't generate e-invoicing in a hurry, because it will have multiple implications in future. Because I'll just give a small brief. The same data e-invoicing you generate is auto-populated in GSTR 1 also. Okay, so that's again another leg of integration which is happening. Let's not go there now, which we'll discuss later. So again, just to come to the point, e-invoicing can be cancelled only within 24 hours from the time of generation. Again, not from the date of generation, date of invoice, from the time of generation. That's one. Next is cancellation of invoice in ERP. Okay. Now you'll ask Sumit, if I cancel the invoice at the government portal, do I need to cancel the invoice in IRP in my accounting software also? My answer would be yes, because for the same invoice number, okay, that example of ABC, if I have cancelled that invoice on government portal, IRP portal, I cannot generate an invoicing again for that same ABC invoice, because government IRP portal has a deduplication check. So it's advisable to cancel that ABC invoice in accounting software also, so that at both the stages, at IRP level, at the accounting level, both it is at par. Okay, so if I'll just read out the points. If done in IRP before generation of invoicing, cancellation is possible. If cancellation of invoicing, if cancellation after generation invoicing, then cancellation is subject to 24-hour limit. Assume vice versa scenario. You have cancelled in ERP. Okay, so your accounting team was not aware of the functionalities of 24 hours or the condition of 24 hours. They by mistakenly they cancelled the invoicing they cancelled the invoice in your ERP, Tally, SAP, Oracle, whatever. But they forgot or they missed to cancel that on the government portal, and they passed the time limit of 24 hours is already passed. So this situation is tricky now. because you have already cancelled the invoice in your accounting software, but that invoice is appearing on the IRP portal. In such cases, there are two options. Okay, one is you create a credit note on the IRP portal, but you will not create a credit note in the accounting software, because accounting software, the invoice is already nullified, it is 0. But in the IRP portal, there is one invoice. Now, if I have to generate a credit note to nullify both, I cannot generate the same credit note in ERP, because ERP already invoice is cancelled. So to keep the balance, you have to generate a dummy credit note technically on the IRP, which is not advisable. Okay, this can be an option, but not advisable. Ideal way is, if by mistake such scenarios have occurred, better on the GST portal while filing GSTR1, because the data will be auto-populated in GSTR1. While filing the return, you delete that invoice. That's a better option, because to correct one mistake, you will commit another mistake at the IRP portal by generating credit note. Hope I'm able to explain this, because a little tricky. If you generate a credit note in ERP again, it will lead to a credit note in the ERP. Okay, for which there is no invoice, because invoice I have already cancelled. Okay, so one option is that you generate a credit note in the IRP portal, but again there is no corresponding credit note in the ERP. Okay, so you have an invoice in the IRP portal, you have a credit note, both nullified, but these both documents are not available in the accounting software. Okay, so better to have an invoice which is not available in accounting software, better to have that invoice in IRP portal, let it auto flow into GSTR1. When it auto flows in GSTR1, at that point of time, you delete the transaction. There is an option to delete. You delete the transaction. So when you compare accounting books with your GSTR1 returns, it is both matched. So that should be the ideal scenario. Okay. Now, third is cancellation of e-way bill. If e-way bill is validated at any check post, as I mentioned earlier, if one's goods are moving, okay, while during the transit, the movement, you just figure it out, like there is an issue in the e-way bill. I have commit a mistake, human error. I want to change it. I want to cancel it. You cannot cancel. Once it has been validated or inspected by any officer at a check post, then you are not allowed to cancel it. Other than that scenario, if there is any genuine reason that you have to cancel e-way bill, you can cancel the e-way bill on the same document number. Again, I'm repeating, this is different with the e-invoicing. In e-invoicing, on the same document number, you cannot generate an invoice. But in case of e-way bill, on the same document number, you can regenerate an e-way bill in a genuine cases. I think I'll take up questions here, because this is a little complex. I don't want to unnecessarily extend this. I will take up the questions. There are the hands being raised. 1 second. If I think Bhavita has raised her hand, do you want to ask your query? Because this is a little complex. I'm sorry, I'm diverting from my statement, but I just want to take up this questions one for this aspect at least. Purna sir, it's okay. Hello.
Yeah, if you want to take over, I'll change the setting actually. You want me to change the setting?
Yeah, you can change the setting, and let's take up this question, sir. One,
so that they can unmute themselves and they can ask a question to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm changing setting. Yeah, one second. Yeah,
in the meantime, you switch on.
Bhavita ma'am, if you are there, you can ask your question. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, till the time she comes up with a question, I will take up the question from the chat box. Mr. Vinod Kumar.
Sumit, most of the questions I have answered, but still can take up those questions.
No worries. The recent question, there is one question from Vinod. Can we reset, delete GSTR1 invoice, deleting all the auto-populated from invoicing, and upload it the same way following the process followed in pre-invoicing time? perfectly fine, no issue. Okay.
So in addition to Sumit, what you said, see, the problem is once you reset this auto-populated data which is coming from e-invoicing portal, what will happen is your recipient will not be able to see the IRN number and the details. So sometimes many of the clients, what they are doing is they are doing a VLOOKUP of this IRN number from their database. So and matching that. So it is perfectly fine. Even GSTN has issued 3 circulars till now, stating that if the details which are auto-populated in the GSTR1 are wrong, you can reset those details and change it. And you can go ahead as you used to do prior to e-invoicing regime.
Done,
Hope
sir.
that is answered.
I think Mr. Vinod, your question, hope it's answered. It is possible, but advisable, or we would recommend better to do a reconciliation of e-invoicing details with your sales data and then only go ahead with the written filing, because this will avoid unnecessary hassles in the assessments.
Yeah, there is a hand raised by Venkat Krishna, sir. Sir, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question, sir. You have raised.
Sir, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
So my question is that one of my client is engaged in the business of exempted goods. The goods are processing of seeds, agriculture seeds. In that case, is invoicing, is it mandatory?
No, sir. So e-invoicing is applicable only for tax invoice, GST debit note and GST credit note. It is not applicable for bill of supply. So in your case, you would be issuing a bill of supply. So for that transaction, e-invoicing is not applicable.
Yes, sir. Thank you. One more question. I got a real estate client who does both taxable services and non-taxable services. Taxable services are construction services. Non-taxable services are sale of plot. And his turnover is now more than 100 crores. And is it necessary for him to raise an invoice in respect of taxable supply separately and non-taxable supply separately? How he has to?
So generally for tax invoice, you should not include the exempted supplies, sir, because exempted supplies you need to issue a bill of supply. So it is ideally they should issue 2 separate invoices, one for taxable activity, one for exempted activity. And for taxable activity, you generate an e-invoice.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, you said no, e-invoice already generated. If cancelled, you cannot generate with the same invoice number. Then as per rule 46, if suppose I generated with the e-invoice number, serial number 46, if I cancelled it and again I generated with 46, it won't allow us. It won't allow us. Then my serial number changed, no?
No, sir, no, that invoice will be shown as cancelled. Sumit, you take it.
No worries. Vinay sir, you can.
So that invoice will be disclosed as cancelled in GSTR1, and you can continue the sequence from 47.
Okay. Not possible to again 46 is not
So
possible.
not allow the duplicate number once it is cancelled.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So as I mentioned, ma'am, this e-invoicing portal, the first validation, the foremost validation is deduplication. Once it gets to know that for the same invoice number, I have generated an invoice, it will throw an error directly. It will not even check the details of the invoice.
And also to add a point, most of the taxpayers are doing a mistake that they're adding a suffix or prefix like by a or backslash or dash. That is actually not acceptable, because in many cases during transit also, if officers are verifying those documents, they are levying penalties. So it is, we should avoid generating with the same document number. Don't put any prefix or suffix.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think, or we can.
Finally, sir, 1 minute. Finally, conclusion is that for suppose if I am not able to cancel any invoice within 24 hours, I may be deleting from GSTR1, right? No, sir?
Sir, ideally you should generate a credit note and generate an e-invoice for that credit note also. So what would happen is that you will see an invoice as well as a credit note, which will nullify both the transactions.
Instead of deleting in GSTR1, right?
Yes, sir. But what will happen if you delete in GSTR1? There will be a mismatch between invoicing details and GSTR1.
GSTR1. Okay.
Yes. Right. So ideally, you generate a credit note and disclose both.
Okay.
Sir, the deleting, this is second scenario. If you have by mistakenly cancelled invoice in your ERP, okay, then you take a recourse of deleting that invoice on the GSTR 1. Okay, there are two scenarios. In your case, one is that invoice is active in your ERP also, but 24-hour limit is over. So you generate a credit note in your ERP also, you generate a credit note in the IRP portal also. So everything gets matched, no issue. By mistakenly, in ERP, you have cancelled the invoice, okay, but you forgot to cancel on the IRP portal. In such case, we recommend that you delete the data on GSTR 1, because in this case, generating credit note will make this transaction more complex.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think I can proceed now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. One question came, sorry. One of my client 18-19 financial year turnover 62, but in 19-20 is below 50 crores. It is still applicable, sir, because it says any of the 3 financial years.
Yeah, there's raised by Vallampatla Venkateswara garu. I mean, Sumit sir answered regarding that question only. Yeah, it is applicable, right, sir?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, fine.
Okay, fine. What, sir?
Okay, so this relationship of e-invoicing, e-waybill, then cancellation. So we have covered both. Now coming to amendment. Applicable. So first of all, as I mentioned, there is no concept of amendment in e-invoicing. You have to directly cancel only. Okay, so amendment, if there is no change in the underlying invoice, but changes in some details about the invoice where it uploaded ILP wrongly, amendment per se is not allowed. The only option is to cancel the invoice, possibly issue credit note if 24 hours cutoff has lapsed. Amendment in ERP, amendment can be done in GST portal only. IRN will remain the same. There is an option of amendment at government portal also. But once you do the amendment, it will be red flag to the officer. So be careful before doing any amendment at the GSTR 1 portal. Amendment in e-waybill, amendment in e-waybill is not permissible as of now. Amendment in GSTR 1, as we discussed, yes, it is possible, but again, it will be a red flag to the any amendment in GSTR 1 shall be highlighted to the concerned jurisdiction authorities. So be very careful before doing any amendments at the government GSTR 1 portal. Now, issues relating to reporting. So what can be the possible issues in reporting? First issue is e-invoicing has to be maintained for a period of 72 months. Okay. Now, to create a repository for so many months, firstly, you should have a robust technology system to create a repository of 72 months. So, and this will be useful for your assessments also from a bookkeeping standpoint, that how do I maintain records for 72 months, especially e-invoicing. So if you are doing that end-to-end integration, so your SAP, Oracle, Tally will ensure, go to your service provider, take them in writing that your software will ensure the data will be for 72 months. That's the first step. Secondly, if you're doing it manually from the government portal, please be careful, create a OneDrive, Google Drive, some link somewhere, backup, that it is repository is available for 7 years, technically 5, 6, 7 years. So again, at a manual level, it is really difficult, but you have to ensure that the data is available for 72 months. Okay, that's the first and the foremost reporting and requirement of invoicing from a bookkeeping standpoint. Second, B2B supplies will be directly reported from IRP to the GST portal. Again, as I mentioned, first integration was e-invoicing and e-waybill portal. Now, e-invoicing portal is also being integrated with the returns portal. So whatever data you upload on the government IRP portal, don't take it for granted, because the same data government is using to auto-populate your sales in GSTR 1. Okay, so B2B, whatever sales you have reported on IRP portal, it will automatically report at the government portal, GSTR 1. Other supplies like B2C, RCM, exempt, one of the participants, and they asked us that for exempt, how do I manage? So for exempt, you don't report it to the government portal, IRP portal, but you have to report it in GSTR 1 because it is your sale. Hope I'm clear. Next is invoice details uploaded on IRP portal shall be auto-populated within T+3. And this is very, very, very important. I would seek everybody's attention here. Okay, because everybody has a query that what is the, how the movement happens of data of invoicing going to GSTR 1 or GSTR 2A. So the basic premise or the basic technology condition is it is on T+3 basis. The transaction date plus 3. Now again I'll repeat. Assume this month is this today's date is 8th of May. On 8th of May, today if you generate an invoice for transaction pertaining to either any date, Jan, Feb, March, April, anything, you can generate invoicing for any date. As of now, there is no condition. Earlier there was a condition, they removed it before implementing itself. So assume that the transaction that today you're generating an invoicing of on 8th of May. So you count 3 days. So 9th, 10th, 11th. So on 11th of May, that transaction will be appearing on the GSTR 1 and GSTR 2A. Okay. So you have to be very careful. Once you upload the data, ensure. So assume many companies have a closing around 6th, 7th, 8th. So such companies, if they are doing closing on 6th, they will they should try to generate invoicing on 6th or max 7th. So at least if they generate by 7th, by 10th, the data will be auto-populated on GSTR 1 by 10th. So you have 1 day extra to review the data and file the GSTR 1. So this is very critical. Assume for the month of April. So everybody will file their April return in May. Okay. So assume for the April transactions, you generate invoicing on 9th, that is tomorrow. Okay. So when the data will auto-populate, it will auto-populate on 10th, 11th, 12th. That is 1 day post GSTR 1 date, assuming there is no extension. Forget about extension as of now, taking the standard dates. So technically there will be no auto population of GSTR 1 and you would be filing returns based on the sales data you have to manually upload, which is not advisable because GST officer will ask that why did you why didn't you file your GSTR 1 basis e-invoicing generated? Why there was a delay in e-invoicing? There can be multiple questions. So it's advisable max by 8 of subsequent month, you generate e-invoices if possible, because this will help you to file GSTR 1 also with the same database. Okay. That's a third reporting requirement. Okay. Now, list of key validations. Okay. What are the key validations of invoicing? So as I mentioned earlier, there are multiple validations, but we have plotted here some of the key validations for your information. First is, in case of export of goods, ship to address should be place or port in India from where export is being done. Okay, sorry. So in case of export of goods, one of the validation is that the ship to address should be the place or the port from where the goods are being exported. Now, how do I'll take an example. Assume you are exporting goods from Vijayawada. Okay, so goods are moving from Vijayawada to America, USA. Okay, billing is happening to okay, thank you, sir. Now, ship to address should, so my transaction is I am exporting goods to USA, but USA customer told was, okay, you give me goods, but you ship these goods to Canada. Okay, so this is a cross-border bill to ship to. I'm just giving us a good example. So goods are going from Vijayawada, chilies are going. So chilies are very famous, I believe, in Andhra and Vijayawada area. So red chilies are being exported from Vijayawada to USA, but USA customer is selling, boss, don't physically export to USA, physically export it to Canada. So when I issue an invoice on a very layman terms, I will do bill to as USA, ship to as Canada. Correct? Now, from the e-invoicing standpoint, Government says that, okay, commercially you raise an invoice of bill to ship to as USA and Canada respectively. But when you generate e-invoicing, permanently, compulsorily, you mention ship to address as the port from where the goods are being exported. Port can be Kakinada port near you, in Andhra, the Visakhapatnam port, if it is Kolkata port, Chennai, any port from where the goods are being exported. Now you'll ask me question, Sumit, what is this? This is against the principle. Ideally, ship to location is Canada. Why is it port? Because there are two things majorly. One is government wants to integrate e-way bill also with e-invoicing. So you know that e-way bill number also gets automatically generated with the e-invoicing details. Now, with this details, if you provide Canada details, they cannot generate an e-way bill for Canada because the jurisdiction of Indian authorities is only up to India. Okay, up to the nautical miles as per the customs law. Now, to mitigate this issue, they say in case of exports, you give us the ship to details as the port. With that details, accordingly, we will generate the e-way bill up to the port from where the goods are being exported. For example, from Vijayawada, you are sending it to Kakinada. So when it goes, so you will say e-way bill is required from Vijayawada to Kakinada. That's it. Hope I'm able to explain it properly. There are two things. E-way bill is required only for movement of goods, not for transaction. Transaction is with USA. So I will generate e-invoicing on the USA party technically. Okay, but for generating e-way bill, I will generate e-way bill for the movement of goods. Ideally, movement is happening up to Canada, but as per jurisdiction of the authorities, I have to generate e-way bill only up to the Indian borders. So my Indian border is the port. That's it. So I will write ship to party as USA, America. I will write I will write bill to party as USA, and I'll write ship to address as a port address. And if the port address, I will give the PIN code. Accordingly, my e-way bill will be generated. So that's the basic understanding to keep the ship to address as the port address in case of export of goods. It is not applicable to export of services. Again, I'm reiterating because export of services, there is no movement. So e-way bill is not required. It's only applicable to export of goods. That's the first validation and one of the important validation. So please don't mention Canada as a ship to address, mention the port address as a ship to address. Second, restriction on document date for uploading an IRP portal has been removed. So as I mentioned earlier, today, as on 8th of May, as I'm speaking, you can generate invoices also for 1st of October 2020. That is also allowed. There is no restriction. When earlier there was a white paper by the government before implementing it, they had mentioned a condition of T+1 day, but that was subsequently not implemented legally. It was only a suggestion, and later they thought that okay, due to practical difficulties, this cannot be implemented. So as of now, again reiterating, for generation there is no time limit. For cancellation, there is 24 hours. There is a confusion in the market. They say generation also is 24 hours. No, generation, no time limit. For cancellation, there is a time limit of 24 hours. Hope it's clear. Third, in case of supply.
Sumit, just to highlight here. So though there is no specific time limit prescribed, it is to be noted that movement of goods without generation of e-invoice would attract penal provisions. It is like 10,000 rupees is the penalty which is prescribed, and also they can detain the vehicle as well as the goods. So it is not that you can generate all the invoices for April month on May 1st. So system is right now allowing generation of invoice with a back date, but as originally planned, there will be a time limit of generation of invoice on T+1 day. If that T+1 day is crossed, you will not be able to generate an invoice with date invoice which is beyond T+1 day. That would be shortly implemented by the government. Also, like it is advised that there should not be any significant gap between the invoice and invoice date, because government will or the tax authorities will treat this as a clandestine removal. So may not be everyone will do this clandestine removal, but there is a practice by few taxpayers, and also I have seen many incidents where taxpayers were required to pay double tax on the same transaction. Sumit, you can continue.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so the third one is, in case if supplier is an SEZ unit, then he cannot generate an e-invoice. So as Vinay had mentioned earlier, there are certain exemptions to various categories of persons. One of the person is SEZ unit, and SEZ unit is not required to generate an e-invoicing. They have a separate compliance called SERF, which is more or less like this, where they generate an document for their invoices. Fourth is invoicing. Invoice cannot be regenerated for cancelled IRN. As I mentioned earlier, once you cancel an IRN for a document ABC, for the same document ABC, you cannot generate an IRN. Only allowed tax rate can be entered. Now, there are a slab in the GST. You cannot, government cannot just come up and say that, okay, 7.5% is a tax rate tomorrow. No. As per the law, there are certain slabs of rates of GST. Broadly, it is 5%, 12%, 18, and 28. There are few other for gold and all. So these are the permissible rates. So you have to enter any of these rates. You cannot enter tax rates other than these prescribed. Next is tax amount validation at item level and total level. Both is being done currently. Next, direct export. You have to, so one of the question which everybody would be having in their mind, that Sumit, you are telling e-invoicing is applicable to B2B transactions only, then why there is a e-invoicing requirement for exports? Because in case of exports, my customer is an unregistered person. Technically, it's not under the jurisdiction of India. So he should be termed as an unregistered. So in such case, why am I required to generate e-invoicing? So this is an exception to the condition for B2B, that for exports also you have to generate invoicing. Okay, so this is, you can just remember this. This is for B2B, the only exception is exports, physical exports and service exports both. Next is state code for export should be 96 or 97. As of now, both are being allowed. Maybe they will keep it one going forward. But state code will be either 96 or 97. Next is HSN code should be valid as per GST master. Now, you may say that, Sumit, if I write an HSN code of 9988, will they validate that as per the description? No, they cannot validate, because HSN classification is a disputed matter. It's always a litigative matter. It's subjective. You cannot, for the same description, one industry or one company may take a single position of 5%, other may take a 12%. It's very much possible. So government will not validate the description vis-a-vis the GST rate or the HSN number. They will only validate, because the prescribed HSN code is 4-digit, 6-digit, 8-digit for goods. For services, it is 4-digit, 5-digit, or 6-digit. For example, in case of goods, you write for services you write 99881. Okay, it will accept, no issue. But if you write 998, only 3 digits, it won't accept. It is based, validation is based on only digits. You have to give only either 4, 6, 8 digits for goods, 4, 5, 6 for services. Done. So this is for invoicing, e-way bill. E-way bill is not generated for debit notes, credit notes, and services. Everybody would be knowing for services, definitely there will be no e-way bill. For services also, there is no. For debit note, credit note also, there is no e-way bill. Pin to pin distance is validated by the government. If you provide the pin codes, they will validate whether these pin codes are correct and the distance is correct or not. Vehicle number should be matched with Vahan database. This is a new functionality validation. The road transport organization have a database of all the vehicle numbers, active vehicle numbers. These vehicle numbers, once you provide in the part B of the e-way bill, the vehicle number, they validate that with the Vahan database. This again will go next level, that they will do the integration with the FASTag. Once the vehicle is crossed the highway with the FASTag, they will also say that, okay, the goods have moved, so you cannot cancel the e-way bill. So this is the next level automation they are looking into. Next is e-way bill will not be generated if supplier or recipient GSTN is blocked due to non-filing or suspension or cancellation. So this is also validation that if you provide a GST number to customer which is not active, which is not valid, or which is suspended for some reason, then you can't even generate a bill. Next, PIN code of the recipient GST is mandatory if shift to details are not entered. If you provide shift to details, e-way bill will be generated based on shift to details. If you don't provide shift to details, the e-way bill will be by default generated based on the bill to details. Next is, in case of incomplete information passed for generation of e-way bill, then IRN will be generated, but e-way bill will not be generated. And the missing details are nothing but your transporter ID or vehicle number. Now, what are the recent clarification? I would say clarification on e-invoicing. First, whether 50 crore can do voluntarily e-invoicing, the answer is no. As of now, the option is not available. Second, vendor management. The facility has been whether as a customer, can you check the status whether my vendor is liable for invoicing? Yes. If you punch the GST number, it will show whether the vendor is liable for invoicing or not on the IRP portal. That functionality is available. Exceptions. There is an internet connectivity. Assume you are in Jammu Kashmir. There is an internet breakdown by the government authorities itself. So you manage the compliances, but that would equally be applicable to e-way bill also. So that is something which is very rare and for which government will give guidelines as and when it is applicable. This is TCS tax, very prominent question or very frequent question, that where do I disclose other charges, that is TCS, on the invoice. So as of now, there is no specified field. Government will give schema version, a specific TCS field, but as of now, they say there is a other charges field. You provide that in the other charges field. Even though you don't provide, don't worry. When you print the invoice to the customer, you provide it separately. When you send it to the government schema, it's not mandatory to give the TCS amount. If you want to give another other charges heading. Now, number of 1,000 line items are allowed under single invoice. If you want more than 1,000, you have to take a approval from the NIC portal by writing an email. Next, non-GST supplies. For items which are outside the levy, separate invoices may be issued by such establishment. So this is for the non-GST supplies. Next is rounding off. Rounding off to be done at invoice level and not at the item level. 2-digit rounding off, again, just to highlight. Next is tenure. Repository, as we already discussed, 72 months as per section 36 of CGST, you have to maintain the records of e-invoicing. You will ask whether e-invoicing number will come in GST at 2A. Government GST and portal is contemplating and they will come up with this definitely shortly. Transition provisions. Reporting is based on date of invoice irrespective of the supply period. So you will ask Sumit, I raised an invoice on 31st March. My applicability was on 1st of April. Whether I need to generate invoicing? The answer is no, because the trigger, the applicability is based on the date of invoice. So if the date of invoice was 31st of March, so it is not applicable. Next is document and transportation. Whether I need to carry the invoicing, preferably advisable to carry a invoicing document as of now. But however, as per GST provisions, a soft copy in the mobile or invoicing number is sufficient. Next is chronology with e-way bill. So whether e-way bill can, how do I generate an e-way bill? So first if you generate invoicing, then e-way bill. And the reverse chronology is also same. First you have to cancel e-way bill and then invoice. Next is other charges. This I've already explained. If anything, if you have to mention any other charges amount which is not taxable, okay, then you can include that in the other charges. Impact of non-generation of e-invoice. So you will ask Sumit, what will happen if what are the consequences if I don't generate an invoice? So if you see rule 48, they say that invoicing is equivalent to an invoice as per GST law. So all the penalties, all the penal provisions applicable to a non-generation of invoice will be equally applicable to a non-generation of invoice. It will be that stringent. So be very careful. It goes up to 10,000 per invoice. Now that per invoice, per month, per financial year is something subjective, but assume it's worst case scenario 10,000 per invoice also, it's very high amount. So please be careful. Second is recipient or the customer may be denied the credit because of your non-compliance. So that is also one of the very prominent issue which various companies face. A recipient face that if my vendor is not filing or not generating invoice, what are the consequences? So one of the conditions for claiming credit is that it should be a valid invoice. So if the vendor is not generating invoice, then that will construe to be said as it is not a valid invoice. So hence the credit can be denied. So it has to be taken very seriously from a customer vendor management standpoint also. Third is government may implement a review facility which would restrict generation of e-waybill in the absence of IRN. As of now, there is no such condition. You can generate e-waybill, but because there is no universally e-invoicing is not applicable. Below 50 crores, e-invoicing is not applicable. So you can generate e-waybill, but in future they will not allow you to even generate e-waybill without e-invoice. Transportation of goods without e-invoicing will lead to detention of goods, seizure of goods, imposition of penalty, and that penalty goes up to 100% or 200% of the tax amount. That stringent is the penalty. So please be very careful. Latest update in invoicing and e-waybill. First is GST, because of various teething issues initially, there were certain invoices from invoicing which were not automatically getting transmitted to GSTR1 portal. So they said that you delete entire data and manually upload your sales data, that will be sufficient. That's one. Second is very important update. Earlier, validity period of e-waybill was 100 kilometer per day. Now the validity per day is 200. That means earlier a distance of 100 kilometer was awarded 1 day validity of e-waybill. So if your goods are traveling from here to Bangalore and the distance is 400 kilometers, so you are being awarded 4 days as validity period of e-waybill. Okay, correct. Take my example. Assume that from here to Karnataka, the distance is 400 kilometer, Bangalore. So it is 400 kilometers. So you would be getting 4 days as validity earlier. Now, with the change in the condition, you would be awarded 200 kilometers per day. So you will be awarded only 2 days as validity of the e-waybill. So earlier the truck was getting 4 days as validity. Now the truck is getting only 2 days as validity to reach the goods to the destination. And this has many reasons. From the government side, the reason is that the roads are better, the infrastructure is better, FASTag is being implemented, so the truck is not required to stand on the toll gate for a long time. So the distance or the time to cover has reduced drastically, and to give excess time that will lead to the unnecessary, I would say, fake invoicing or movement of goods without taxes. Okay, so to curb, and the government is quite active in capturing this such fake bogus transactions. So one of the reason or one of the way to manage that they thought is that to change the validity of the e-waybill. So they have restricted the validity now. It's a really important update. Next is direct generation of e-waybill will be brought for taxpayers who are generating IRN. This is again next update. However, they are allowed to generate directly, which are not covered under e-invoicing. E-waybill print shall contain IRN. Now, what should contain the print of the invoice of the e-waybill? If you open your e-waybill today, for which e-invoicing is generated, you will only see IRN number and the acknowledgement number. Other details are not available. They will say refer e-invoicing. That's it. Because they want to avoid the duplication of the work. That's the reason they have just said e-invoicing number and the acknowledgement number. That's it. And the distance validity. Reset button is enabled on the delete. This we have already answered, that reset button is available. Okay, now I've covered the majority of my slides, the procedural practical aspects. Now what next? If you have not yet implemented, what should you do? You have to ascertain the ERP readiness, whether your ERP is ready, compatible, data availability based on the e-invoicing schema INV01 requirements. That's one. Secondly, evaluating the extent of automation and integration required. If your transactions are low, you can go for a manual. You may go for a manual. If your transaction is humongous, many more, then it's preferable to go for an integration. There are various types of integration. You can go direct with government or through various GSTs. Next is comparing current invoice, debit note, credit note format vis-a-vis the schema format. So if you're, as I mentioned, there are 29 mandatory fields. Assume you are capturing only 28, one is missing. So it's advisable that you change your system and get that one field also mandatorily. In case of optional fields, deliberating what to report and what not to report. For example, bank account details. So bank account details, it's up to you. If you want to report, you report. Otherwise, you can avoid it. No issue. In case of prescribed fields are already there in ERP, ascertain whether there are any, these are in the notified format. Next is deliberating on handling post-sale adjustment. This we have already discussed in the cancellation, amendment, and those slides. Next is deliberating on the other consequent issues like maintaining two separate series. So currently you must be having one series for B2B and B2C. So with this e-invoicing coming into picture, you may think that should I create two separate series for B2C separately and B2B separately? It's up to you, not mandatory. Now few are open points. Whether taxpayer can download report from IRP portal beyond 24 hours, as of now, no. But they are trying their best to increase this time period. Whether ITC is admissible if inward supplies does not contain iron and QR code, again it's a question mark. But as per strict reading of law, though it's a vendor non-compliance, but it is not a valid invoice. So you may be denied the credit as a customer. Third is determining whether a vendor is required to issue invoice from a huge list of vendors. This is again a very big activity. If you are having 1,000 vendors to manually sit and check their applicability, it's also a time-consuming issue. So government has not provided any APIs for doing this activity. Next is clarity on amendment done on GST portal after 24 hours. As we discussed earlier, after 24 hours, as of now, the only practical option I would say is a credit note or deleting the entry from the GSTR 1. Next is posting 64-digit IRN QR code in invoice could be a challenge. The IRN number, the encrypted number, is a 64-digit number. That string in many ERPs, there is a constraint to even copy paste that string initially. Now you have to ascertain that with your ERP. Next is whether B2C and DC transaction will be under invoicing. This is a question mark. Government is trying to look into this. I think shortly this will also be coming under e-invoicing regime. Let's hope it comes, because that will bring all the transaction under one umbrella. So you don't need to manually upload anything on GSTR 1. You can just review the amounts and file the return. That's it. Okay, so now we are done with the slide decks. Now we can go with the Q&A.
Yeah, friends, I have changed the settings actually.
Okay, sir.
Sumit sir. Yeah. Participants, if you want ask question, both are available. Sumit sir is there, I think so. Vinay sir also will be able to answer your questions. I have changed the settings. You can unmute yourself and raise a question. Otherwise, you can. Yeah, go ahead. Sumit sir, you can, stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
That we can see the participants if there is any.
Sure.
Raising their hands, it will be easier for us to find out.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think so. Vinay sir is answering the questions in the chat box. So.
Yeah.
So I think I've almost tried to respond. Maybe one or two I might have missed out. So we can take those.
Yeah, meanwhile, Mangal Behari Maheshwar, sir, you have raised your hand. Just unmute yourself, sir. 1 second.
Hello, yeah, you are listening me, sir?
Yeah, yes, go ahead, sir.
As far as the e-invoice is concerned, for the purpose of service, we can issue in the backdate invoice. Whether it's possible for the sale of the goods also?
Sir, condition for raising invoice for goods is before movement of goods. As per the law.
Movement of goods, okay.
Yes. So technically, you should have raised an invoice before the goods have moved to the customer.
So even I have responded in the chat box that if you are moving any goods without valid e-invoice, it will be liable for detention of goods as well as vehicles, and also a penalty equal to 10,000 per transaction will be levied.
No,
So
that I agree. If I have decided to dispatch the goods today,
yes,
in any due to some reason the transport is not available for that.
okay.
Whether it will be treated in the transport will be available after 3 days to me after generation of the e-invoice.
So there is no time limit or validity period for e-invoice. That validity period is applicable only for e-way bill, that based on number of kilometers, 200 kilometers per day. So you can generate e-way bill at the time you get the transport vehicle available, or even presently system is allowing you to generate e-invoice with a backdate also. Though that T+1 day condition would be brought into the system shortly, but right now you can generate a e-invoice with a gap also. However, if there is a significant gap between the invoice date and the tax invoice date, you should be in a position to answer that why there is a gap of 20 days or 30 days between the invoice date and
Department
invoice
will
date.
investigate all these things. No?
I actually missed what said, sir.
In this position, the department will investigate or department will ask the question from the vendor.
Yes, in many cases we have noticed that tax authority said it is a on the same invoice you are moving goods twice or thrice, so
Yes.
pay tax twice or thrice. They are living like that.
Okay, okay.
So they are treating it as a clandestine removal of goods.
Okay, okay. Thanks.
Anyone else want to raise a question? Otherwise, chat box questions have been almost answered by Vinay sir at the back end, while Sumit sir is presenting the questions. Both are available. Otherwise, we'll wrap the session.
Sir, regarding one small thing, maybe any practical issue, like for suppose invoice should be raised within 24 hours, as per my understanding. For suppose 31st March, I mean any month, end of the day, like 30th April, is it possible to raise any invoice on first? Because some of those invoices may not be materialized or may not be finalized, that may be taking one more, I mean 4 or 5 days later. Specifically software companies, they have to send their bosses approval, and again it takes a long time to finalize the invoice, at least 1 week time it takes. But by that time I cannot book the turnover in April month because I cannot raise the invoices. Maybe now it is happening with the whole day, I mean previous 1 week and all. But in future, if it is not happens, then my GST monthly turnover may not match, no? So in this scenario, what should we have to do?
Sir, right now the T+1 day condition is removed, but in future, if it is implemented, you will be non-complying with those invoices. With regard to that e-invoice, the tax invoice, e-invoicing provisions are not complied with.
It's a very much practical problem, no, sir. It is not possible to clear all invoices even before 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. of 30th day or 31st day.
Yes, sir. I understand your query, but right now, like the original plan of the government is T+1 day. They have not yet practically implemented it till now. So they have relaxed it. Maybe they will take your points from industry and or some representation should go to them. For these kind of cases, they should allow a backdating of invoice, especially audit adjustment entries or any invoice of 31st March, generally raised on April 1st week or second week, should be allowed.
It's not only the year-ending transaction, no, sir. It's a month-ending transaction. That means 12 times. Otherwise, always my turnover, my monthly turnover won't be so properly. For suppose if it is a listed entity, quarterly result we have to give. We have to give the all reports by June, and means if we are not able to do that in July 1st, it's very much difficult to publish the result. So in that time, can my ERP accounting package is differ with the GST?
That's what, sir. So I think we should represent the government if they are strictly implementing the T+1 day condition. However, at the most you can go to a period of 11 days because you have to file GSTR 1 by 11th. And if you're not filing on 11th, the customer will not get the credit.
Yes, sir. This really ideal for 11 days, what you said. Because anyhow,
Yes.
we are filing GSTR 1 on 10th, no?
And even that 11 days condition is also, if you are generating on 8th, it will be auto-populated in GSTR1 based on T plus 3 days. However, if you generate on 11th, you have to manually enter these invoices in GSTR1.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, if that answers your question, then I'll go with Mohammed Ghosh, CA Mohammed Ghosh, sir. Sir, unmute yourself and ask a question, sir. Ask your question. You raise your hand. Yeah. Hello, sir. Ghosh, sir. Yeah.
I think he's muted.
No,
He's
no,
on
no.
mute.
No, sir. He has unmuted himself, but I don't know why he's not able to reach us. Yeah, he has muted himself now. Once again, I am asking him to unmute. Yeah, I'll go with. Meanwhile, sir, there is some issue at your end, I think so. Meanwhile, I'll go with CA Ramesh Neelakant. Sir, unmute yourself and yeah, go ahead, sir. Ramesh, sir.
Yes, sir. See whether, sir, e-way bill is required for moving goods from warehouse to the couple of shops in the same city, which is around 3 to 5 kilometers. What is the additional document is required?
So basically, exemption is given for e-way bill only for payment purpose, and that 50,000 or 1 lakh limit as per respective state guidelines are issued. But there is no exemption even if you are moving the goods in a vehicle to a office or a shop or a warehouse which is in the next lane. Also, e-way bill is mandatory. Only exemption is 50,000 in most of the states and 1 lakh in 2 or 3 states. And in case of job work or any other similar transactions, there is no that exemption is also not applicable. And distance of 25 or 10 kilometers is for payment purpose only. I hope you are got
Yes.
the answer.
But suppose if the warehouse is also of the same company and both the GSTNs are one and the same, can we take e-way bill?
Same thing, sir. You have to generate a delivery. The movement of the goods will be through delivery challan and e-way bill. And if the value is below 50,000 and if the movement is between same GSTN, then you may not. It is at your option to generate an e-way bill.
So one more query. There are a lot in the textile sector. A lot of goods has come from different states and lying in the transporters go down. But the main e-way bill has expired because of the COVID situations and it got expired. But how to move that goods which is lying in the transporters go down to the warehouse of the company?
So if transporter location is in the same state or same
city,
then what you can do is you can add that location as additional place of business, and from there you can move the goods through DC and e-way bill. So it can be done later also.
Okay. Suppose we are not in a position to add as an additional place of business.
So there is an option to extend the e-way bill prior to expiry of e-way bill, 4 hours prior to expiry and 4 hours post expiry. That is the only option you can do, sir. Either add it as an additional place of business. They only have to give you a letter stating I have no objection in storing these goods. You can add that in your additional place of business or extend the e-way bill by giving a valid reason.
How many hours we can extend this e-way bill, sir?
So you can extend it multiple times. There is no restriction, yes. But it should be extended 4 hours prior to expiry or 4 hours after the expiry. Beyond that period, it will be blocked.
And also, see, for in the transporters go down, if you want to create an additional place of business, whether some earmarked place has to be kept in the godown of the transporter?
No, only the address is required, sir. They are not asking for an earmarked place. And even rental agreement is also not required. You can take a no objection certificate on the letterhead from the transporter. That place will be added in your registration certificate.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, that answers. Hope that answers your question, Ramesh sir. Sir, there are few questions posted in chat box. If you want to take up, Vinay sir, I will read it for you, or will read it your end.
So one of the question is from Mr. Narendra.
Yes.
Times GST officers insisting for waybill for exempted goods like paddy and asking penalty what to do. So actually, e-waybill is not required for exempted products. There is a list of products for which e-waybill is not required. So they cannot actually levy penalty for those transactions. So we can explain the tax officer based on the rule. That annexure that in the rules you can one thing what we can do is with each of the transporting vehicle you can send that notification copy and highlight the respective product which is covered in that exemption notification. That should be self-explanatory for the officer.
Yeah. Before sir,
Notification.
Gau sir has come back.
2/2017. Correct, no, sir?
Sorry, sir, I don't recollect that number, but exemption is there.
Yeah, exemption is there. 2/2017 it seems. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, Gau sir.
Sorry for interrupting in between. Sir, can we mention in the invoice that it is exempted? No e-waybill is required.
You can mention that also in the invoice, right? And also give reference to the notification number and along with the serial number in the notification stating it is exempt. Accordingly, e-waybill is not generated.
Yes, it will be better.
Yes.
Okay.
You can either send along with the invoice copy. You can attach a notification copy,
yes,
or give reference of the notification along with the serial number in the notification,
yes,
which should be helping your case.
To avoid the discussions with the departmental authorities. Okay.
Yes,
thank you.
He cannot go beyond notification, sir.
Naturally, no one can. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mohammed Gau sir, you have joined. Yeah, go ahead, sir. You have unmuted yourself. Go ahead and ask your question. Sir, are you there?
Mr. Kaus? I think we are not able to hear you, Mr. Kaus.
Yeah, he has unmuted himself. Sir, we will take one more question in the chat box meanwhile. From J. Ramanuja, sir. I think so. Yeah, that question is from Nandikam, I feel. Sir, our client is exporting exempted goods from Guntur to China. Through Chennai. e-waybill is required to Guntur to Chennai. Value is more than 50,000.
No, sir. If the products are covered under that exemption notification, e-waybill is not required. For that limit of 50,000 also will not apply. Irrespective of the value, you can move the goods without e-waybill. Bill of supply is sufficient.
Hope that answers your question, sir. Ramanuja, sir. Sir, there is one more question in the chat box.
I think Mr. Narendra has asked. Yeah. My client deals with FMCG goods. He will use a vehicle to go to his client's place to supply. There is only his client choose goods which are to buy. In such how to generate e-waybill. Sir, what I understand from your question is goods are sent to your customer on approval basis. So in GST there is an option of selling to your customer based on approval. So for such movements, you can move the goods through delivery challan to your customer. Once he accepts the goods, you can raise a tax invoice. Delivery challan should be along with e-waybill. If the value of goods is below 50,000, e-waybill also is optional. Hope that is answered.
Yeah. There is
so you can use the option of sale of goods on approval basis.
There is one more question raised by Saja ma'am, sir. Can you please explain the difference between TCS in GST and TDS in income tax in relation to e-way? That I missed out. Actually, 1 second, sir. The messages are coming.
So both are different and both are different laws and different. So hope I answer your question. So you create a separate ledger for GST TCS and income tax TDS in the books.
Yeah, how to be treated? I think so. That's our question, sir. Sir, Gau sir has raised his question in chat box. It seems he has. I think I'll read out his question once. I'll just checking his question. Yeah, while generating e-waybill, which is import of goods, original invoice is in USD. Sir, you have seen that question, sir. Can you clarify that?
So for that question, what I suggest is you also have a column for INR in the invoice. So basically, what happens is for export invoices, all generally taxpayers issue two invoices. One is GST invoice, the other one is commercial invoice. Commercial invoice will be in foreign currency only. GST invoice will be having both currencies, INR as well as USD. If you are generating an e-way bill based on the INR value in the tax invoice, it should be sufficient, even though there is a fluctuation in the foreign currency during the transit time. If the value in the GST invoice in INR is matching with e-way bill, that should be sufficient. Hope the answer is clear. I have answered the question.
Yeah.
Sir, I have one more doubt. For suppose if you are exporting anything, e-invoice is required to generate, no, but there is no option for foreign currency in e-invoice, no, right? We have to generate in Indian currency only, no?
That's what, sir. Even in the GST invoice, you have two fields, and in all the reportings, even in the GSTR 1, you report in INR only. Foreign currency is not allowed in GSTR 1 also. Similarly, the e-invoicing.
So that means even e-way bill also we can generate simply in INR only.
Yes, yes. It will not allow you to mention foreign currency in e-way bill, and neither in e-invoice also.
E-invoice also, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there is one more question raised by C.R. Kapoor, sir. If I do not know my customer who is going to buy, because I take my many goods in my vehicle around the market and keep selling in installments, then what is the rule for e-way bill? Last but one, sir.
Yeah. So this is regarding the FMCG goods, right?
I think so.
Yeah, goods on approved basis, sir.
In relation to that, I think so.
Sir, actually in GST law, there is no nothing given in the act such scenario. Ideally, you can take one of the customer's name and move the goods on sale on approval basis.
Okay. Last question, sir, by Narendra himself. Sometimes one vehicle is to supply to two or more different locations. In such situation, how to generate e-way bill?
So you should generate e-way bill for each tax invoice. You should generate a separate e-way bill. The vehicle number will be same. However, there should be a separate e-way bill generated for each invoice.
Sir, if vehicle is breakdown, what should we do, sir? We have to generate another e-invoice.
You can put the part B, sir. So there is an option given in e-way bill wherein part B you can update it before transferring the goods from one vehicle to other vehicle. And the reason you can give vehicle breakdown. There is a list of drop down in the e-way bill site also. You can change the vehicle.
So additionally, they can also go for consolidated e-way bill.
Yes, consolidated e-way bill option is also there, but e-way bill is required for each invoice.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, Mangal sir, you have raised your.
Yes, sir. There is one query. If I have raised one invoice and the truck has the plant and machine is to be loaded in the 3 or 4 trucks, what is the remedy of that?
So there is if you see the delivery challan rules, there is an option of CKD and SKD, sir. So they have clearly mentioned how to generate e-way bill for such scenarios. So to simply put in word, like let's say,
can you repeat it again?
So I'll give you one example, sir. Let's say you have plant and machinery. It will be loaded in 5 trucks, 5 different trucks.
Yes,
so this is called as CKD, completely knocked down or semi knocked down condition. Okay. Refer the e-way the delivery challan rules.
Okay.
What they have prescribed is in case of export or import. Let's say import. You are importing plant and machinery which will be transported in 4 different trucks.
Okay.
So they have said for each truck you should generate a delivery challan.
Okay.
Along with that, you have to take a Xerox copy of the bill of entry.
Okay.
And generate an e-way bill for that part itself. And for the final lot, the original bill of entry will be going along with the truck, along with DC.
No. It's not an import issue. If I am dismantling some machinery from my one place to another place, and it will be loaded in the 4 trucks, the same machinery. It will be divided into some parts.
Yes, you are going to sell it. You are going to sell this plant and machinery.
No. We are not intending to sell. We are transferring from our one place to another place, one state to another state.
So from one state to another state, movement cannot be through delivery challan. It should be a tax invoice. If the movement is between two different GSTNs, it is a taxable
Yes,
activity.
I do agree on that.
So similar, whatever I explained you for import of goods,
Okay.
an analogy will be applicable here.
Okay. Same
So
treatment has to be taken.
You will generate an invoice for entire plant and machinery,
Okay.
and give a list of items covered in that.
Okay.
And for each transporting vehicle, you generate a delivery challan. And in the final vehicle, original invoice will be sent along with delivery challan.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes.
Shall we wrap the session, sir, or one more question raised by Narendra sir in relation to this only? I think so. Whether you want to take up that? Yeah, which rank? I mean, sometimes one vehicle used to supply to two or more different locations in situations like that. How to generate e-way bill, sir, to vehicle check? Which rank officer is authorized by the GST Act to check a vehicle?
So specifically, there is no mention in the Act or no powers mentioned in the Act, sir. Sumit, would you like to answer this?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
What is which rank of officer can check the vehicle?
So they don't specify anything, we are not clear as of now. As
Yes.
such rank, which rank?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, shall we wrap this session, sir? If everyone, I think so, we have answered. I mean, the resource persons have answered almost all the questions, all questions, in fact, and otherwise, we'll wrap the session for today. And in fact, 6 days GST course organized by Vijayawada branch on practical aspects in accounting of GST in relation to maintenance of books and records. Yeah, we'll close the session, sir. There are no more questions coming up. I thank CA Sumit and CA Vinay for their excellent presentation, sir. Your session is in fact very, very wonderful, and it was more meaningful, and your PPT also, presentation is also more interesting. It was because I have received messages in practical that 6 days sessions were good. In fact, and today's session was much more superb. That was a message received by one of our past chairman of Vijayawada branch, and my friends also, good friends also, they are saying that today's session is excellent. So again, even participants also are giving their accolades in the chat box, which you yourself can see. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, sir, for today's. And I also thank all the participants for registering for this 6 days course and joining us and keeping engaged. I mean, raising your queries. This keeps us more and more motivated from branch side to rope in best speakers and organize best courses, programs to keep you engaged in this pandemic situation. Throughout the course, almost all the speakers were stressing on this topic, and almost on the day one, chief guest CCM Central Council member Prasanna Kumar also stressed on that. Please do not venture out even unless until it is a health emergency to your family. And also youngsters at your home, they are being the carriers most of the time. We are being safe, but I mean they are going out for some purpose, and they are not getting affected, but they are getting infected and carrying that to the grandparents and parents. So please, cut the chain at least by following the protocol for at least 10 to 15 days, so that this world will become a better place to live in. And as I announced at the start of the session, we are going to start a 4-day program that is on topic. On 4 corners. We have mentioned it as 4 corners because we have speakers coming from Delhi, Chennai, and Hyderabad, and even from our own branch. So flyer will be given to, will be posted in chat box, posted in WhatsApp groups, and it will be made to you also. So interested participants can register for that. I once again thank you, sir. I thank CA Mandava Sunil, past chairman of Hyderabad branch, for arranging such a wonderful speaker, CA Sumit and CA Vinay. Through him, sir, Vijayawada branch has, on behalf of Vijayawada branch, we, appreciate your presentation for today, and we'll be in touch with you, and we'll try to organize more and more sessions on GST in future, sir, from branch side. Thank you once again for sparing your valuable time. Then if I'll call for the day, and we'll come to a close of this 6-day program on GST practical aspects in relation to accounts and records.
Sumit sir, if possible, kindly share your PPT so that our members are requesting the same, if possible.
Friends, I will reiterate the same thing. Once we receive the PPT from our resource persons, then we'll mail the same to you all. And this session is available on Vijayawada YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that if you haven't subscribed not yet till now. Please so that all these videos will be posted in the Vijayawada YouTube channel. You can once again go through the session and you can re-listen to the questions. And if you friends have asked that Q&A session to be mailed to them, if it is possible, then definitely we'll mail the Q&A session, which is discussed here by Vinay sir at length and also by Sumit sir. And in fact, all the 6 days Q&A sessions, if it is available, we'll mail to you, sir. Okay. Until then, we hoping you to see you all, seeing you all on 19th of this month for the 4 corners topics. Until then, stay safe, stay at home, stay healthy. Good night. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.